That's what I think. Why Nuclear Falls Behind, a literature review by Ryan Troy. When I say nuclear is falling behind, and I do not mean it's inferior in any way. When it comes to the court, like when it comes to the discussions around like climate change and green energy, nuclear is one of the best options we have out there. They're given the pros and cons. As we can see here, it currently makes up like a fifth of our total power production, while having a significantly lower number of total power producing units. However, where it does fall behind is in its growth. It's like while renewables only gained mainstream adoption in the early 2000s, they've reached the same level of percentage in our economy, in our power grid, as nuclear has in the effective 50 years of its lifespan. Well, this is caused by the lack of new construction. It's like in 1990, any production of nuclear power plants almost entirely ceased, with only 5 new productions happening since then, 2 of which are still currently under construction and being delayed due to lack of access to funding. Now, nuclear is like in my full presentation, I go through all the listed reasons why this gap appears. Here's from the court of the change in public opinion, what do you call it? Public interest groups, corporate lobbying, and counter lobbying from oil and gas industries. In this particular presentation, I'm going to be going over the court of public opinion first, as it is the main factor that influences nuclear's lack of growth. The 2 factors of it being public distrust from past nuclear accidents, as well as the lack of separation between nuclear power and nuclear weapons in the public eye. Public opinion and nuclear accidents. It is no surprise that nuclear accidents like Fukushima, Chernobyl, 3 Mile Island would create public distrust in the public's eye. They are these seemingly magical events, and that the common person doesn't understand what led to them. They are not given that information. And you can even as we looked at that graph, looking back at that graph I found earlier, it's like the dates for 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl line up with the first dip, and then the final closing of our developing nuclear industry. That has never recovered since then, and that's due to the lasting effects of that shift in public opinion. When it comes to there were studies conducted around Chernobyl, who found that the public information that was getting out through news and all that stuff there, only 20% of the public news was actually providing any level of context that would give the common person any sense of scale, any sense of understanding of what caused the event, the actual effects of what the actual effects the event had, and putting it into a context when it comes to comparing it to other disasters in other industries. When the effective way is that we would need to then this public opinion would need to be countered is obviously through education. As the actual data shows, both over there, you can see on the left here, it provides all the death caused by various fields. You can see the amount of deaths per the terawatt hour of energy production, and even nuclear is down there at the very bottom, and that's including all the nuclear disasters that have happened. Nuclear, despite its dangerous nature, is handled with great care because of that dangerous nature, meaning it's being safer overall. Another problem with the public consciousness is the public's inability, this is a uniquely American issue of public opinion being of nuclear power being intertwined with public opinion on nuclear weapons. This is likely, this is due to our experience with the American people's experience with the Cold War and our experience with Hiroshima. Although one might ask, the experience with Hiroshima like wouldn't that have had a greater effect on that curve there? We don't see much effect there, and it would. However, it was around the 80s, and I said the American public got better. Like the American public did not get to see Nagasaki and Hiroshima until until a good while after. Like there was some presentation of photos taken, but it was not widespread being able to see the effects of the damage. The nuclear shadows of people that once were cast upon the walls. It was not in the public consciousness, the sheer devastation they caused. And despite that, we already feared them. We spent the entire Cold War or afraid of a homogeneous or nuclear holocaust. And it's that lingering fear of these nuclear weapons having the same name as nuclear power that is found in this graph here, that even terms that are used specifically for nuclear power compared to nuclear weapons, both had like very similar amounts of like connotation in the public mind. Like words that would be like plant would still go might receive a neutral score. However, even like a power, like when talking about nuclear power, they are presented with this as they're presented with this with given just a title above the test, one being nuclear power, one being nuclear weapons, and given words to associate with good or bad reactions. And the results found on a very heavy connection between nuclear power and nuclear weapons. The public fears them seemingly the same, despite their entirely different functions and mechanisms. This is due to a severe lack of education on nuclear power. We are not taught on how nuclear power is differs from nuclear weapons. That means when we grow up in school, we're just sort of thinking about oh, the neutrons reacting. We picture them as slow reacting bombs. We think about Chernobyl, we hear about the roof blowing off, and we think about explosions, much like nukes. However, to face these issues that nuclear power has nuclear engineers need to be taught in a way that will prepare them to help dispel this public disinformation with positive reinforcement. Teaching nuclear engineers how to make nuclear engineering approachable, understandable, relatable in a way that doesn't put people off. The main reason why this is going to be extra important is the graph that I presented earlier did not list the full power requirements of the United States. It was simply our power grid. This graph here, listing our full power requirements, has an extra 10,000 terawatt hours that will need to be accounted for by something if we're going to go carbon neutral. So it's not only that we'll need to get our grid to 100%, we'll need to expand our grid beyond where it is now, much further beyond. And the only feasible way to do that in a reasonable amount of time is with nuclear. Nuclear, renewables combined as one. It's the reason why I see the K-State as being an optimal place to start this change is due to its mission statement. Specifically point 3, where the goal of the campus is to provide service through outreach programs to our profession, Kansas, the nation, and the world. I see no better place than K-State to start this movement. I recommend a class as going over these various things like standing in nuclear's way and teaching nuclear engineers how to properly advocate for their field and advocate against counter protests and various other things deterring their field. This has been my presentation. Thank you.